大家好, I'm Nathan Rich, aka 火锅大王. Today I want to talk to you about Danielle DiMartino Booth. She did an interview with a dude who runs a channel called Valuetainment, in which she somewhat famously made huge accusations against China. Now this was a few months ago, and I'm sorry it took this long, but I just couldn't let this video go. I had to respond. So I've held it this long until I had enough time to do it. She owns some consulting firm, and she's one of these overeducated people who, well, you'll see. Some of the comments on it said that she was a great icon for feminists and women around the world. And I'm gonna show you today why no women should be looking up to this lady, at least when it comes to stuff about China. Without further ado, let's take a look at Danielle DiMartino Booth.
She got her MBA from University of Texas at Austin, got her MS in journalism from Columbia University. Danielle DiMartino Booth.
A master's in journalism from Columbia. Wow, I've got a lot to learn from this lady about how to do proper research and do responsible journalism. A lot of this video she spends in her own lane, talking about the American economy, criticizing it, and there's a few interesting parts, like this one about debt in the United States.
Save before you spend. It is not part of the American culture anymore. I think we're going to return to some of our more frugal roots. As Americans, I think we've kind of lost our way because we don't look at what we earn compared to what we can afford. We look at whether we can make the payment and just get by. What we need to do to just get by, paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and not set aside anything. I
agree with her on this. There's a lot of debt in the United States, and the whole culture needs a little bit of an adjustment. But it's this part that's the most interesting. Listen to what she says here.
Is it our fault, or is it the decision makers' fault that we got here?
I think placing blame is short-sighted, because I think the blame has to go around.
Well, that's very level-headed of you, I do admit. I mean, I tend to want to blame corporations, but maybe you're just being the bigger person here. So I'm with you. When it comes to American things, we don't need to look for who to blame, okay? It's not about blame. So now the interviewer asks a very weird question about the coronavirus.
How much of this do you think is China saying, you know what, screw you, US, you're playing this hardball with me, I'm gonna come and bully you in a whole different way that you won't even pay attention to it? How much credibility do you give to that?
So his weird conspiracy theory is there was a trade war that happened back in 2018, and after like a year of that, China was really sick of it. So it released a virus. It somehow knew that it was gonna be fine dealing with that virus, and that the United States was just gonna drag its feet endlessly, month after month after month, never doing anything about it, and this was gonna hurt the US more than it. I mean, this is the theory that this guy just brought up. Okay, master's degree in journalism from Columbia. Let's hear how you react to this question. Now, it's a totally ridiculous conspiracy theory that would demand lots of evidence. And you are not an expert in this field at all. And you're obviously well-trained in journalism, so I assume that you're going to decline to comment on this. Or at the very least, you're going to decline to make bold, unsubstantiated claims, right?
In late November, word had already gotten off of the mainland that there was a virus in Wuhan.
I remember this. This is somebody saying that the US government knew that the Chinese government knew about a virus in Wuhan back in November of 2019. That's what you're saying. Now, the Pentagon denied this, and this would have gone out to thousands and thousands of people, and yet we've never once had a leak or a copy of it anywhere. So there's no evidence or proof of this at all. And again, what you're saying here, this is very important. What you've just said is the United States of America and the People's Republic of China in November of 2019 both knew about this virus. That's what you just said, okay? Carry on.
On January the 15th, the U.S. trade bill was signed.
Wrong. It was December 12th.
December the 15th, excuse me.
No, it was December 12th.
December the 15th.
No, it was December 12th.
A trade deal between the US and China has reportedly been signed.
I had a whole month off, December the 15th.
It was December 12th. Wow, you work very hard to make it seem like you're using facts. I mean, you'll do anything but actually use facts. That you won't do. But you'll do a lot to make it seem like you're using facts.
6 weeks later, the trade truce was signed.
It was signed January 15th, which is 4.5 weeks later, not 6 weeks.
The trade truce was signed with an out clause, a very clever out clause that the Chinese made sure was in there that said if there was any kind of act of God, pandemic, then they didn't have to make good on what they had committed to buy from the United States.
That's weird. Why would an atheistic country demand an act of God clause to be put in their contract? That is bizarre. I mean, I'm sure that you're right, master's degree in journalism from Columbia, but I'm just going to check the wording myself, okay? Let's take a look. In the event that a natural disaster or other foreseeable event outside the control of the parties delays a party from timely complying with its obligations under this agreement, nothing about God, the parties shall... Wait. Oh, I guess this is the part where it says if something unforeseen happened, the parties shall totally cancel the entire trade war, right? Totally cancel this agreement, not have to buy anything, right? I mean, this is the entire point of your conspiracy theory, is that this clause is an out for China, right? So let's see what they shall do according to this big scary clause. What shall they do?
Then they didn't have to make good on what they had committed to buy from the United States.
The parties shall consult with each other. That's it. They shall consult with each other. So that's why China released this virus on purpose, that it magically knew would mostly affect the United States. It's because they wanted to consult with America. You know, they do have telephones in China, right?
Within days, they announced the first coronavirus.
It is so embarrassing that anyone would look up to this lady as a feminist icon or whatever that person said. I mean, she's so dishonest, and she's talking about something she doesn't know anything about, but she's saying it with certainty, and she's making huge, really controversial, really negative claims with, so far, nothing to back them up. She just said it was signed 6 weeks later instead of 4.5 weeks because she really wants you to think that China knew about it for such a long time, even though, of course, there's zero proof that they knew about it at all at that time. And now she seems to say that within a few days of it getting signed, China told the world about the virus, which is totally crazy. I mean, the entire world knew that there was human-to-human transmission as of the day before, and that it was spreading across the globe. That was known. Or maybe she meant that a few days later, after December 13th, is when China told the world about this virus? But that doesn't make any sense because both America and China, according to her theory, already knew about this for weeks at that point. So what are you talking about? And I know I already mentioned this, but did you notice how she turned 6 weeks into 4.5 weeks to suit her narrative, and then turned almost 2 weeks into a few days?
Did the Chinese know damn well that this thing was running around the world for 6 weeks before they shut down Wuhan?
Well, as a stupid non-journalist, I have this crazy idea that we should stick to facts. And since there are no facts that say yes, then I'm going to have to say no. But what do you say, professionally trained journalist?
Yes, they did. Is that criminal? Yes, it is. Does it deserve to go in front of a world tribunal? Yes, it does.
Okay, so just with no proof at all, you're gonna say that they did know all of this. So you're calling for a world tribunal against China and the United States, who you are claiming also knew about this at the same time, who, according to you, both knew that the virus was spreading and both signed the contract anyway. This is bizarre. And just look at this guy bobbing his head up and down like an idiot. This interviewer has a serious, stern look on his face, and yet he hasn't asked one single difficult question. Not one challenging question to this lady. Not one, are you sure it was 6 weeks and not 4.5 weeks? Not one, oh, what evidence do you have for that? Not one. While this lady is basically accusing China of war crimes with no evidence at all. It is shocking to me that anyone would respect these people. It is disgusting what they're willing to risk to make themselves look a little better and feel a little better and feel like they've virtue signaled to their base.
It was the unfettered travel that made this thing a global phenomenon that was impossible to contain. 6 weeks they knew, but they wanted that out clause.
All of this is based on nothing. You do realize that, right? And again, why would the U.S. sign it if there was an out clause? I already showed you that there isn't an out clause, but even if there was, why would the U.S. sign it? Since according to you, they already knew about the virus.
And then they underreported what happened in Wuhan, which a toddler could tell you based on what happened in Italy, based on what's happened in Germany and in France and now in the UK. There's no way in a city the size of New York, 11 million people, that there were so few cases. It's impossible.
What it must feel like to be you, surrounded by people who just tell you all day how smart you are and what an icon you are and how brilliant you are, and have someone like me come along and say, a toddler could tell you that, but if you were a little smarter, you would have realized the reason that those numbers are that way is that China reports symptomatic cases. Do you even understand the words that I just said to you, Danielle? I hope you do, because otherwise you might want to stop paying those student loans and get your money back.
The World Health Organization should be held accountable for not holding China accountable to providing good, valid data so that the rest of the world could prepare for fewer people to die.
The day before it was signed, it was reported in multiple places across the world that human transmission was possible. I don't know what other good data you're looking for, but everyone in the entire world knew that fact as they were signing this agreement.
To me, these are equivalents to acts of war on the part of China. Most major media outlets on both sides of the aisle came out and reassured the United States that it was just the flu. We sat on it for 6 weeks and tried to reassure the public that nothing was happening.
Wow, she really likes the phrase 6 weeks. I don't know what 6 weeks you're talking about. I mean, it took 10.5 weeks for the United States CDC to start recommending anyone even wear a mask in the United States. Is that what you're talking about? Was that an act of war against United States citizens, by the way? Why not?
Somebody should be held accountable for that, because somebody in the United States intelligence community has to have known what was truly going on in Wuhan. We don't have a CIA for nothing. And yet we told Americans for 6 weeks, while South Korea was testing everybody and shutting the country down, that it was just going to be the flu.
I don't know what you mean by 6 weeks here. And again, the interviewer does nothing to clarify what you're babbling about. But to this day, the United States has still not done anything of considerable size to stop this spread in America. And everything you just complained about had nothing to do with China and everything to do with mismanagement of this outbreak in the United States. Surely you just realized that, right?
So there are a lot of responsible bodies right now that have taken us to the point where we're at, inside the country and in China.
Yeah, one that has lots of evidence and one that has little to no evidence. And the one that has lots of evidence, you speak very level-headedly about. And the one with little to no evidence, you speak of in an extremely inflammatory and irresponsible way.
You don't even have to get on the discussion as to whether or not this was a manufactured virus and set upon the world. If we just ascertain what is known and a known hushed-up secret that the Chinese knew for 6 weeks about the virus before saying anything on the global stage to get a trade deal signed, somebody needs to look into that.
I just did look into that. To reiterate, you are an actual person who seriously thinks that somebody out there will believe the following. China was sick of a trade war, and so it released a virus in the middle of China, in a city that's not a major international hub. And the United States and China both knew about it. Then China said and did nothing about it while a bunch of people got sick and died so that they could guarantee to have a meeting with the United States. The United States knew that all this was happening, but still signed this agreement even though, according to you, it meant that China would be able to get out of it completely. And because of that, China has committed an act of war. No facts, shoddy research, totally broken logic, and a horrible job at hiding bias. It's just another example of somebody being told day in and day out just how smart they really are until they actually try their hand at something that's quite difficult and consequential. And when you look at what they're saying, No, they're just victims of their own bias. Well, as you can tell, I'm pretty annoyed by people like this who say extremely, extremely upsetting things to the whole world, and then people like this interviewer who just let it all slide by without a single critical question. If you like this channel and you want me to keep covering stuff like this, support it. You know how to do so. Till next time, thanks everybody. 谢谢. She's gonna be really... This thing's getting loud. Let me put a little more whiskey in here. These are metal ice cubes. Pretty cool. Doesn't water down your whiskey. And when your whiskey is 18 years old, you don't want it to be watered down. Cheers.